Welcome back. This is Morning Express. Thank you for staying with us. And of course, it is the political point. And what exactly qualifies one to be a leader in Kenya? Is it money, ethnicity, political alignment, corruption, or even mediocrity? All these have propelled men and women of our motherland to power and leadership. History is replete with the so-called waheshimiwa who have questionable character and integrity issues that disqualify them from any leadership position. Is it a case of leadership crisis? The emerging crop of leaders raises more questions than answers on what the public looks for when choosing leaders. The situation is not different across Africa. Aged and worn-out leaders clinging to power, others dying in office. Where is the problem? And joining me in studio to steer that conversation to my immediate left is Kaikai Kisinja. Next to him is Kevin Osido. And of course, we welcome George Keithy to the set. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Now, just what I just said, what is the problem when it comes to leadership in our country, our nation, maybe even our continent in general? I'll start with you because you just joined us, George.
Well, what is leadership? I think leadership is power donated to an individual or a group of individuals so that then that person could lead the people. But that's theoretical. Mm-hmm. What is the ideal? The ideal is that a leader is a dominant person over the others who emerges as top in a competitive environment. Now, that takes us to something called democracy. What is democracy then? Mm-hmm. It is the people coming together who otherwise are lost in problems. They want someone else among themselves to solve the problems. Mm-hmm. Meaning that because there are problems and they are weak, one of them who is dominant, otherwise seen to be the strongest, or the weakest but has a way to be seen to be the strongest, emerges as the most competitive and therefore becomes a leader. Mm-hmm. And therefore leadership is not an ideal to solve the problems of the people. Mm. It is the organization and social structures that are created to institutionalize to institutionalize certain problem-solving situations, so that then solving a problem is not beholden to an individual. Mm. It is beholden to an institution or a people who come together who are guided by a certain law.
Yes.
And therefore, the problem we have in this country so far is that we have not come to agree to the concept of institutions. And our institutions are still very, 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 very weak. Mm-hmm. We have the concept of the individual and therefore a cult following. For instance, if you look at the personality of Raila Odinga, you remove him, the opposition crumbles.
Yes.
On account of the fact that he is a cult of his own. And so is in Jubilee. We have either Uhuru Kenyatta or William Ruto, and that's the cult following. By the way, if you remove Uhuru Kenyatta in this, there'll be a lot of disorganization, and that, therefore, there's no institution in the politics in Jubilee. Okay. You come again to the other institution we created, such as then in Mbuvi Sonko's issue we're discussing earlier on. Is it Mbuvi Sonko who won? Is it Jubilee who won? That becomes a problem because remove Mike Mbuvi Sonko. It is a possibility that ODM or NASA will have won the seat.
Yes.
Again, it is arguable that why then did Mbuvi Sonko ask the ticket of Jubilee instead of NASA? Mm-hmm. Probably then the combination was right. So it is a whole conundrum. It is a whole cocktail and matrix of issues that combine to emerge, for one to emerge into leadership.
All right. We just want to remind you, our viewers, that you can always call in and give us your opinions. What exactly do you look for in a leader? What do you do when you elect? What do you think of? You can always call in. I will also be answering your questions in case you have any. Now, I'll come to you, Kevin. Let's look at the crop of leaders that are coming up. We have the likes of Sonko. We have Babu Owino, Waititu, Waiguru. Is this the future of Kenya, Can we trust these people with our country?
Can we trust these people with our country? Very interesting question. But look at it this way. Could the voters, could we be the problem? Could the followers be the problem? Mm-hmm. If you asked people to vie, to present themselves for nomination or election as Nairobi County, a Nairobi City County governor or other gubernatorial position, who do you see coming up?
Okay.
If you went and asked people to present names for Embakasi West, what kind of people do you see coming up? If you went to Kirinyaga and asked people there to present names of people to be governors, who do you see coming up? So much such that even people who have been tried, tested, and proven to be able to deliver do not therefore get these opportunities. But for the case of Kenya, it is difficult, and I thank God because we are drawing very closer to that situation where we will look at our leaders beyond personalities and what they carry. And what I mean by what they carry is their ethnic constitution, and secondly is the power of money.
Okay.
Because for Kenya, a good leader is only as much as she can be able to carry money, so that you can go and steal money from young people and you go and throw it to the electorate.
Yes.
And because you are carrying money in bags, then they will elect you. Because this is our thief. And if you think our thief is not good for your place or for your area where you come from, then surrender our thief to us. We are able to feed our thief. We are okay with our thief. That is the kind of leadership that we see in this country. But it is because even the people that we feel can be able to deliver, like Polycarp Igathe, who probably have been tried, tested, and proven again at Vivo Energy in the private sector, which is also a system that operates within our governance and leadership structure in this country, because private sector really drive a lot of governance and leadership issues, and even the political one, as well as the economic aspect of sectors of this country.
Yes.
But in the fact that he's able to deliver in the private sector, why are you running away from delivery in the political arena? This is the kind of leadership that we are seeing. So what therefore this means is that a leader is only as good as the followers.
Okay.
And the opposite could also be true, that the followers will give in a leader who is not very different from who they are. But there is hope. Because why I say that there is hope is that all these things that are happening are able to help us learn. Do you know how many times I have tried to run for a seat in this country?
Yeah.
From 2002 as a very young man. But do you know what the people will say? Who is your wife? How much money do you have? Who has sponsored you? Are you a Jubilee Mall, or you've been sent by Raila? And these are people that we expect to change the leadership of this country. So until when we are able to deal with our attitude, until when we are able to deal with our way of thinking, until we are able to deal with our mindset, actually it will be very difficult for us to present the kind of leaders that we want. And you spoke about Africa.
Yes.
There is nothing as good as seeing your leaders sleeping in high-level conferences where decisions about moving Africa forward are supposed to be made. And then when someone stands and says assholes, then we are like, what did he just say? Is that who we really are?
Yes.
It adds no value to our leadership as a continent. So in my view, what this means is the youth at this level need to begin to look at how do we move forward. And Africa has more than, I think, 800 million young people who can be able to move this country, this continent, both politically, economically, and in all these spheres. What is the place of mentorship?
Okay.
If you asked Kalonzo, for instance, Mheshimiwa Kalonzo Musyoka, who are you mentoring to take over from you? Tell us the person. Why Mheshimiwa Raila is really an issue to us right now, as it were, is because we cannot pick up someone. Like President Moi said, mimi naona ni huyo kijana in 2002.
Yes.
Ambaye anaweza. And over the years, huyo kijana aliyekuwa mdogo has been able to come up, and we are seeing certain progress, albeit all these issues that Kenya has.
Yes.
So mentorship, in my view, also plays a lot. A key role insofar as what leadership is. But that mentorship has to be, cladded with positive leadership elements, so that we don't see leaders. Africa is very rich, but our leadership is the problem.
All right, and of course, he's talked about youths. He's talked about we, the people, the Kenyans are the problem, the citizens are the problem. So what exactly is the right criteria of choosing a leader, Kai?
I think I like the analogy of what Kitty was saying.
Yes.
In terms of the definitive aspects of it. Now, what you're asking is a very nice question. You have to look at it this way, that some people say that leadership, people are born leaders.
Okay.
Other quarters or other schools of thought say you nurture leader. Others say it's a cocktail of both. Whatever way you look at it, depending which school of thought you ascribe yourself to. But you have to mirror that definition back to society, because these leaders are not mushrooming from nowhere. They are mushrooming from within the citizenry. It's us who are given a mandate of 5 years. It's us who are going to the ballot. It's us who are selecting them. So when you see that you select a leader which in your own view think that is a questionable character, then it means that even myself as a voter or a registered voter, I am a mirror of that leader. In the sense that we choose what we, or who we want to lead. Because remember, one of the things when you began the discussion, you talked about some leaders are flamboyant, some leaders are popular, some leaders have this. Because there's a character I will be looking for in a leader to select. Either he's very flamboyant, either he's very educated, either he's smart in his thinking, either he has money, either he's popular, whatever it is, or he has a mix of all these things. Now, we have to understand that that's how we operate as Kenyans. But the solution to all this, so we elect who we mirror ourselves. But the solution to all this is the fact that we have now a very elaborate legal framework that enables us, for example, if you look at, to recall a leader. If you elect a leader, thinking that he has wowed you, he has made it into parliament, he has made it into Senate, he has made it into whatever office it is, and you're not happy with him, then we still have a recall way of recalling these leaders to come back and question them. If you think you elect a leader who then develops integrity issues, you still have a way to recall them. So we have a problem within our society ourselves of how we elect the leaders, but the same problem has been solved by law in the sense that you can still recall these leaders. And that's something that applies across Africa. Look at what happened in Zimbabwe the other day. We had a leader who had been there for donkey years. He was, for some reasons, removed from power by other extrajudicial mechanisms or means. Look at Rwanda, for example. So it's a problem that is in Africa. It's a problem that is all over the world. So we need not to beat ourselves so hard that probably we elect a leader who is questionable when he reaches there. We still have a way to recall them. If push came to shove, you still have 5 years to change.
Okay, all right. And I'm being told that, of course, we have callers. And we will start with Brian Oguna from Machakos. Brian, good morning. What is your contribution towards this discussion?
Good morning, guys. How are you? Nice debate.
Good, thank you.
Yes, hello? Brian. Yes, Brian, please continue.
Okay, now, my 2 cents on leadership. The whole scenario dates back from independence, whereby you realize that Kenyans really fought so hard for independence, but then there was no plan for the redistribution of wealth that was taken from the white settlers. Now, what happened was that we had a society or a nation that was so much imbalanced, whereby one side or one function of the country was really much stable, whereas the remaining or the majority part were wallowing in poverty. So when you're talking about leadership, we are talking about a culture. And I agree with what that gentleman has said. I don't know if it's Kisinga, the guy sitting on the left, yellow tie. I agree with what he has said, that we really need to instill this culture of citizens being, we really need to instill this culture whereby citizens, we choose leaders on the basis of merit, on the basis of integrity, and not on the basis that, okay, so-and-so has money or so-and-so comes from this party. That is why we are seeing a lot of shenanigans that are going on. Look at whatever is happening in Nairobi County right now, whereby the deputy governor has to resign. You know, look at whatever happened in Mandago, in where the city council officials were beating people and throwing their investments. I mean, just like that. So these are just indicators that we as Kenyans are still electing very bad leaders into office. And as a matter of fact, we don't have leaders in Kenya. We have politicians. There is a difference between a leader and a politician. We elect politicians into leadership positions, and the end result is what we have: bad economy, corruption, force. You know, so it's a time whereby young people need to pool their intellectual and financial resources together so that we can educate each other on different fronts, so that we avoid this habit of recycling leaders that are not steering our country into any direction. That's why Trump can confidently call us a shithole, So the buck stops at the young generation of this society.
Yeah, all right.
I mean, yeah, thank you guys.
All right, thank you there, Brian Oguna from Machakos. Thank you for your contribution. The next caller is James from South B. James, good morning. What is your contribution to this discussion on leadership? James, if you can hear me.
Good morning.
Morning, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
What is your contribution?
I would say shortly, the biggest problem we have in our leadership is the shortcomings in democracy. The minimum... Hello?
Yes, please continue.
Hi, how are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Now, I'm talking about the shortcomings in democracy.
James, if you can just turn... Okay, we just move on to George from Kiserian. George, good morning. What is your contribution on this issue of leadership?
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
Yes, I think I'll support the gentleman who talked about institutions. Our country is in dire need for a society that will support institutions. Because without institutions, then we are not going anywhere. I believe we have one very good example of what leadership can turn a society. I live in a place called Kajiado North, whereby we have a sample of what Kenya should be. It's a cosmopolitan constituency where you have people from all over the country, and they live very harmoniously. And the current MP has supported that channel of respect to institutions. We talk about administration, we talk about devolution of the MCAs, we talk about now the national government, the security, education, and all those issues. So I believe if we support and foster institutions, we respect institutions, then you are going somewhere. Talking about Nairobi, where you hear about Igade, the governor, I think Mr. Igade should have done it better before out to resign to foster that aspect which Tonko have talked when in Mombasa of dialogue. Because I believe with dialogue, it's a young government, we need dialogue, we need young people who are in leadership to foster dialogue. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much there, George from Kiseria. Now, we've heard from our callers, you know, we need independence. Since independence, there's the issue of wealth distribution. And of course, how exactly do we instill leadership in our leaders, even as we groom them, George?
Interesting. You know, before we became Kenya,
yes,
we still existed in our own ethnic, or tribal cocoons and so on and so forth.
Yes.
Those days, if you are a good wrestler, we'll appoint you as a leader. If you're a good medicine man, you can call the rain, or you can condemn a young man who is a thief to die, or something like that. You have powers. Then we make you a leader.
Yes.
You know, there's a certain aspect that we're associated with then. Then, somehow, somewhat, we were socialized to become one geographical area called Kenya. No law existed, by the way, at that time. Then there was a law. So then we existed, and a law existed. So we are beholden to the law that we make, and we keep on changing it, and so on and so forth. We were then told there's something called representation, and we sent people to parliament.
Okay.
And at that time, we were sending what in our own tribal environments would be the best men or women to leadership.
Okay.
If then at that time you are the best witchcraft, or the best witch, or the best medicine man, probably you are the best person who will have taken then. So then what was leadership then? That movement to now is what has grown to be what leadership is today. Probably the contemporary situation now is that a leader must serve the contemporary issues. It will be different in future. You see, Americans have elected somebody now they're calling a madman. That's an issue because they've developed over many years. For us, we are looking at leadership who solves the problems today and leads us to the challenges, to surmount the challenges, overcome the challenges that we have now. But that doesn't mean that the following day we won't have other challenges. This is going to be a constant, in fact, persistently so. in our environment. So even if this generation goes, the next generation is going to have its own challenges. So day in, day out, we're going to have challenges. So if then you see challenges, you elect a leader, in the name of Igathe, for instance, somebody we thought is a good combination with the politician in Mike Sonko, and then he resigns because he's faced challenges. I mean, then that is not a leader. So who is a leader? Come to the same thing. I do think that the birth of a leader has a lot to do with the societal reality, because a leader comes from the society. That wrestler must come from the society. And by the way, the wrestler is one who wrestles the weaker in the society. And then he becomes dominant, like I've said before. And then he emerges into leadership. Now, how do you become dominant? It's the money. Either you're handsome, either you speak well, either you are arrogant and we like it, either you're a good fighter, and so on and so forth. Because if you go, for instance, to Nyanza, I mean, they don't want the weak. It's a person who can stand up and tell of so and so, and therefore we like it that way. If you go to certain areas also, we like the meek, the person who are gentle, the school, properly dressed, and so on and so forth. So leadership is a combination of all that. I don't think we'll get an answer to that, which then is a sum total of a definition for the country, because we have very many regions, like I've defined before. But that is more complicated because we have a system called democracy. Now, what is democracy? Really, it is this system that says every 5 years, you guys must divide yourselves into certain biases, and you bring up a person who becomes a leader because of the biases. What is the bias? It's undefined. The bias is because you have money. The bias is because you talk well, you are educated. I know you, I don't know you. You come from my tribe, and so on and so forth. So then I think we need to give a chance to the society because of the laws that we have and the institutions to grow, so that then we sieve out leadership through either education and so on and so forth.
Now there's this issue of, leaders that have been there since the beginning, clinging into power, and we know a few, not only in Kenya, but also in Africa. But before we get to that, I'd like us to listen to the president of Uganda, Yoweri Museveni, on what he had to say about age limit.
The people who talk of term limits, we don't agree with them. We think they are not really addressing the real issue. The real issues in Africa are not who, they are what. We're talking about the future of Africa, you're talking about term limits, about who will sit on this chair. Why don't you talk about the future of Africa?
But that is part. All right. We have such leaders. And, recently Mugabe stepped down, but that was after quite some, turbulence up and down. But then even in Kenya, we have people like Beth Mugo who have been in the industry for a long time. What happens then? How do we, take over if they're not willing to relinquish the power, Kevin?
Actually, you see why, for me, the situation that we find ourselves in right now as Nairobi City County is exciting. It's not because a deputy governor has resigned. As we said earlier on, there are so many counties, in fact, almost half or 50% plus that are running without deputies, or, just the significance of a deputy governor. But why this is exciting is because Polycarp Igathe presents to many young people that future. Because I have been to places where Igathe has been proposed as a keynote speaker to universities, in universities or in different setups. And if he is not able to fight it out politically, because in this country, politics determines almost everything, including who becomes a bishop or an archbishop in some of these.
Which is wrong.
Whether wrong or right, I do not know. It's really about us. But politics is really an answer, as we have said earlier on, to many of our questions. The point to me is, how do we add value to the political setup? That then presents the question of, yes, whether you want to be there for 70 years, you want to be there for 100 years, what is the value that you are adding? What is this different thing that people can be able to see in you and say, we are comfortable with Ashley. Yes, she's helping us meet our dreams. We are okay because we can be able to get water. We can be able to have put money in our pockets. We can be able to have ugali without fighting with costs. We can be able to get electricity without fighting over increments. We can be able to have fuel because we are comfortable because Ashley is our leader.
Okay.
So we will have Ashley until when Jesus Christ is coming back and we are happy to fly over to heaven. But that is not what you see in Africa. Because even as President Museveni is speaking, Uganda has serious issues that then, in my view, would really proceed on for debates around his legacy and what kind of Uganda he wants to live. Because again, each of these countries in Africa have different histories. Uganda's history, which is military, more or less military regimic, is different from Kenya's history, which is, yes, Mau Mau, but we move on to fight over single-party rule, de facto issues. We move on to do constitution. For 2 terms, we have a referendum in 2005 and in 2010, and now we have a much more constructive democracy,
yes,
like my friend Kithi is saying it. But even in the debate around democracy, is it going to be about the people or is it going to be about the power?
Okay.
So even in Kenya, for instance, and as I said earlier on, we have given a lot of talk to how much money somebody has for them to be able to buy us to vote for them, which is not supposed to be like that. Because in my view, leadership has to do a lot with service to the people and not power to the rulers.
Okay.
It has to do a lot with dignity to the office rather than a lot of desire and forced respect to an individual, because that respect is earned. In my view, leadership has to do with that personal dignity and how you transfer that to the people so that then they feel respected and they are able, therefore, to give you feedback. Okay. Because a leader who does not accept feedback, really, you are as good as being tethered somewhere with a rope and you just keep rotating there. But I think that Africa can be able to make it if we can be able to have deliberate investment in our young people. And that really boils down to Kenya. Because this country, we've had so many youth policies that are supposed to drive the agenda of young people. But look at how many unemployed young people we have out there.
Okay.
The policies are weak and the leadership is not doing the right thing.
All right. We would like to release our KTN Home viewers. Thank you very much for staying with us here on Morning Express. I am Ashley Mazuri. Have a good day. All right, Kai, let me come to you. He's talked about youth. He's talked about maybe the problem is us. But let's not forget here in Kenya, there's that saying that better the evil that I know than that one that I don't, which is sad. For example, Mike Sonko was a senator. He was an MP. Before we elected him as a governor, what did he do for us for him to deserve the gubernatorial seat?
I think let me pick up from where Yoweri Kaguta Museveni left,
okay,
because that was the clip that we were to make comments
okay,
on. And let's look at then I'll come back to Sonko, because I want to put it into perspective. And let's look at within the region. Now, the leadership crisis of every country is determined by the politics of the day.
Okay.
When you look at Uganda, for example, when Yoweri Kaguta Museveni came to power, he came to power through a crisis, through the barrel of the gun. Now, if you went to Uganda and ask Ugandans, and so we shouldn't be very harsh on Ugandans, because this is the democracy of Uganda. If you went to Uganda and ask Ugandans, they will tell you the wars that we've been through before Amin's time, Obote's time, and all those military coups that took place in Uganda, would rather have peace. So for me, I'll rank peace as a Ugandan better than democracy. So they will decide then, therefore, to keep on recycling Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. And that's why he's saying, it's not him who wants to stick in power. It's the people of Uganda who wants him to stick in power. If you went, so they would rather choose to recycle him than as opposed to going to another person.
Which is debatable.
I think it's more the threat.
It's debatable.
If you went to the neighboring country, Rwanda, Rwanda has also had crisis after the 1994 genocide.
Yes.
And they have had a lot of nice time of peace since 1994. And Rwandans, including the last election, they are saying, and remember Rwanda is 7 years, it's not about 5 years. They say, we'd rather go for Paul Kagame because he has stabilized the country and he has led this country into proper democracy. In fact, they normally say, why change or why fix something if it's working?
Okay.
So it all depends there. If you went to Tanzania, Tanzania now has a different democracy like Kenya, where we have a system where the law talks about 2 terms presidential limit for presidential candidates.
Yes.
So we are stuck with that, and we do it like Kenya and Uganda does the same. So my question now, let's move away from now the presidential candidates. Let's now come to the question you're asking.
Yes.
And you named some names. I don't know why you picked some names, but you picked some names. So let's look at someone like Governor Sonko. Governor Sonko is a very good politician. He's very good on the ground. He blends well with the youth, and the youth understand him. So you have to understand in Nairobi, who are the people who vote? The people who vote are not the middle class. The people who go to vote in Nairobi are the youth. They propel him to power because they believe in something that he can offer to them. So is he talking directly to his electorates? Yes, he's talking directly to the electorates. If Mike Sonko goes for more than one term, you don't blame him for sticking to power.
You blame
but
the people.
you don't blame the people.
Okay.
You give credit to the people because they are seeing the value that Sonko is adding to them.
Okay.
So you never blame a leader. It comes back to me as a voter.
Okay.
Yes. So that's how we look at it.
Not when there is no water, not when the city is very dirty, not when we are seeing accidents because of bad roads.
I mean, there's the theoretical perception of what people otherwise should get, and the practical aspect. You know, when you go back home, when you see my grandmother staying with the goats and sleeping with the goats, I mean, you tell me, you'll condemn me and tell me, why haven't you built a... yes, and you have money, why haven't you built for her? She doesn't want to live. She wants to sleep with the goats. So again, it is true that we must deliver service to the people at what pace and in what environment. By the way, if you go back home, we would rather all the money goes into school fees. Everything goes into school fees, whether we have water or not. That's one way of looking at it, because the problems are very specific to the people. Now, it doesn't mean that we should not deliver services to people. We should. But then it is a relationship between the leader and the people who are led. So it is always not right to blame the leader, blame everyone who contributes.
Which is why, actually, I said earlier on that you can't separate a leader from the followers.
Okay.
Yeah?
True.
And we said that the society is as good as a leader who is leading them, because we are the people who are voting them. Yeah? Now, it is, I don't think I want to go into the running of a county because, you know, counties run in very specific, in certain setups.
Okay.
A county will run through what is called a CIDP, which is a County Integrated Development Plan.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
When a governor is running, and I was here when you were discussing the Sonko-Igathe blueprint, because it was on the standard, it was it was attached to that newspaper. And I was in this studio when you were saying this is what the governor wants to do. Now, right now, we have a review process of county integrated development plans that is ongoing. Yeah? If Nairobians say that their priority is education, the governor has no mandate, has no duty to consider infrastructure, because he wants to generate money out of building roads. The people have said, put within the CIDP education as our priority.
Okay.
Which is why we said, and I began the debate around what is the aspiration of the people when we are choosing Ashley as our leader. What is it that we are seeing in you, and how do we interlink our dreams and aspirations to your personality, to your go-getter spirit, to your ability to speak, to your ability to show up when nothing is happening and to make things happen.
Yes.
That magic.
Okay.
So for counties to be able to deliver, and Sonko has to be very clear, and leadership has to begin to move to that level of feeling that the people also have a place in more or less making their voices account in the running of their affairs and the decision-making processes. Because a leader will not get up there when things are crumbling and you're expecting to be ranked #1, when really people cannot feel it.
Okay.
So it has to be about the people and service delivery, especially for devolved governance. And you know now, we have so many aspects of leadership spaces in counties, even at the level of village councils.
Yes.
So I also think that there is a lot of emphasis that has been put on certain positions, like the presidency, you know, the office of the president or the president. We have a lot of emphasis that has been put on the governor, whereas we also have ward administrators at the county level. We have people who can be able to sit as board chairs in schools, board chairs in health facilities. All these are leadership positions. And you begin at that level and people begin to see what you can be able to do. And ultimately they come to you and then they say, we believe that George Kithi can be able to run this county because we selected, or rather nominated him as a chair of a youth group somewhere. He moved on to be the one commanding all the border settlements in this area. He moved on and became the chair of all the chairs of the boards of schools. And now we think he can be our MP. When he gets to the level of being an MP, people can say, oh yeah, now you've run a constituency, can you become our senator? Then ultimately become a president of the republic. But that is not how I think we look at it.
Okay.
We attach a lot of emphasis on certain positions, and we forget about the small little things, the little voices that people can be able to take advantage of to move on this country to a better place.
All right, now we need to, wind up. So moving on as a country, what is the way forward? I'll give you each 1 minute. I'll start with you, Kaikai.
Way forward in terms of leadership management is follow the law.
Okay.
We have a very elaborate legal framework. We have a recall clause. If your MP is not working as it's supposed to work and you are not comfortable with him, you can recall the MP. There are mechanisms set out in law. We have addressed these things in our legal system. Number two, we continue hoping that we should continue recycling leaders until you get a leader that you think will mirror yourself, will do what you want, and will achieve your objectives.
All right. Kevin.
Fellow Kenyans, unlimited is nothing. You have a voice that can be able to speak for a difference. Go out there and make the difference in your own little or small, big way that you can. God bless you.
You'll have the last
Thank you. I think I still subscribe to the fidelity of law.
Okay.
Why we make rules is because it creates a relationship boundaries and delineates our boundaries. One starts from somewhere but has to stop somewhere. It can't be a run that's unlimited, like he puts it.
Okay.
And therefore, ultimately, we must observe the law. The rule of law is to everyone, and nobody has a right to step on the other person's toes. But most importantly, I'm still agonizing as to whether Igathe has resigned. Okay. Because there's no mechanism as to who he should send that letter of resignation to.
Okay.
Mike Mbuvi Sonko is not an employer of Igathe, and therefore to write to Mike Mbuvi Sonko and say, I have resigned, in law, it has no place.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. To my immediate left, Kaikai Kisinja. Next to him, Kevin Osido. And last but not least, George Keith. Thank you very much for making time joining us here on Morning Express. We want to take a short break, but when we come back, we have more stories in store for you. And don't forget, we also have your money. Times are hard. There's a high cost of living currently. Petrol is going up. So what to do? Diesel. So we take a break first.